Replacing the starter on a Toyota 5.7 liter V8 like you might find on a Tundra Sequoia Land Cruiser is a pain in the dick. This video is hopefully going to show you a little bit faster way to do it, a little bit more efficient, save you a little bit of time, and hopefully prevent you going down a rabbit hole that might actually cause more issues. As you can see, this is a long video. This is like 40-ish minutes or so. If you're already roughly familiar with the process, you've done all the research, the different techniques, do you mess with the transmission cooler lines? Do you take off the motor mount and jack the engine up? Do you take the starter solenoid off? Do you do the whole thing where you take the exhaust manifold and the catalytic converter off? You're roughly familiar with all those different options, but you're just like, Evan, just tell me the process. Tell me the steps to go through, which ones to do, which ones don't to do, maybe in the correct order. Then I have made a summary video for you down in this description. Click the link down there. We're not going to go outside to the cruiser. We're not going to turn any wrenches. It's just going to be me sitting here in the shop explaining what to do, because you're already familiar with how to do all the stuff and the sizes of the bolts and where they're all at. You don't need that. So if that's you, click on the link down in the description. I'll just give you the rundown, probably save you a little bit of time. For everybody else still with me here, we can proceed to the detailed video and kind of my thought process, how I arrived at this, try out some different techniques, some novel things, some different tools, and you'll see the whole thing and how to do it. First off in this video, remove or disconnect the battery. I forgot to do, well, I did it, I just didn't show it in the video. So disconnect the battery, obviously remove the wheel, that should be pretty obvious, and then behind the wheel there is a splash guard on the wheel well that I also didn't show how to remove. The clips are a pain in the dick hole. Just break them off. Just use an interior pry tool and just break the fucking clips and pull off that little splash guard. Then also for like the first 10 minutes of the video, my dumbass struggled getting the engine oil dipstick tube out. I could not wrap my brain around how it worked. It's really quite simple. There's a 10 milliliter bolt. Remove it and yank a little bit and it just pops right off. It's a little O-ring down there. So that's super simple. I don't know why I couldn't wrap my head around it. So yeah, disconnect the battery. Obviously take off the wheel. If you can't figure to take off the wheel, you probably shouldn't be doing this job. Disconnect battery, take off the wheel, rip the stupid splash guard out, break the, you're not going to save the stupid little trim clips that go in place, and then remove the oil dipstick. And then, as Slick Rick says, here we go. All right, we're at the first heat shield here. This one should be pretty easy to remove. It's just 1, 2, 3 bolts. You can't really see that one. Oh, you can kind of see it's hiding behind that line there. Probably use a swivel adapter to get to that one. And then you can see the first bolt for this next heat shield that we're going to get to next. Okay, we've got the first heat shield removed. I forgot in the videos that you're supposed to take the oil dipstick out. That's what that is. That's what was blocking that bolt there. You can see the little connection for it. I was able to get this out without removing that dipstick. Just use a little swivel adapter. Kind of a pain in the ass. I had to fumble around with it for a few minutes, but you might find that saves you time. We'll see as we get further into the video. Okay, under the vehicle here, kind of zoomed out so we got a decent view of where we're at, just to give you some perspective. And what we're looking at, the shield that we want to remove is right there. So it's pretty easy to see that bolt there, and let's see, there's another bolt right down there at the tip of the flashlight. You can barely see it. And then this is what a tough thing that I had a hard time figuring out. Sorry for the wobbly shaky video. You can see this terrible freaking third bolt right up at the top here. At least I can see. Oh, right there it was. Let's see if we can get some light, shed a little light on this situation. And yeah, it is real tight space working in here. There, right there at the tip of the flashlight, see that? You can't see with that light right there. It's at the tip of the flashlight. You can see it right there, just mocking you, like, come get me. Here I am, right there. That is going to be difficult to get. But you can see there's this little ridge, this little curve on this thing. I think that is maybe what's preventing people from getting in there. Because if you got a wrench that you can get up in there, but it's flat, you're not going to be able to get around that curve, which is where I'm hoping these offset wrenches will be just enough to get up in there. And then that little offset that sticks off about a 1/4 inch or so will be just enough to grab onto the head of that bolt hiding behind that little curve. Sorry for my blurry phone, it doesn't know what to focus on. But so that is the tough bolt that we're going for. It's 10 millimeter. These other two are pretty easy. In fact, you probably don't even need to access them from underneath the vehicle. Yeah, from the side right here, pretty easy to see. There and there. So just for perspective, that's where we're at. So those two I'll probably get from the side. It's that top one that's going to be a pain. And so you see what I'm talking about with this curve. Here's a little 10 millimeter. It's got a little tiny portion that sticks out there. Let's give this a try right now, because this is one of the things I was thinking could work. The second thing that could work is to actually loosen the starter before we do this at all. This is going to be tough to do. While holding the camera, zoom in there. So that is a little crack we got to get in. We could go to these bolts, loosen the starter, and see if it gives us just enough wiggle room. But let's see if I can even fit this up here. Okay, where are we? Yep. All right. Yeah, that looks like it will fit. It does fit up there. Oh yeah, and I think I can get that thing. I don't know how well you can see that on camera because this doesn't want to focus. But I'm pretty sure I'm on the other side of this. The bolt head is somewhere up here, up around here. I just got to get this ratcheting mechanism to, or this swivel. Yeah, let's see if this works. That would be pretty freaking sweet. Okay, so that actually worked really well. I realized when I'm getting in there, there is so little room to get this wrench onto the bolt that you can only back it off a tiny, tiny bit. I've got about a 1/4 turn on the head of the bolt right now. It was enough to loosen it, but I don't want to move this wrench much more because if I back it off too far, I'm not going to be able to get the wrench out, and I can't reverse. Well, I could probably reach something skinny up in there and reverse it so that I could go back the other way, but I don't even know if there's enough tension on it to reverse it. So I just backed it out a tiny bit. Hopefully I didn't get my wrench stuck. That would really suck. But what I'm hoping is with that reversal there, then I'll find some other method to hand unscrew it the rest of the way or whatever. But that was actually very easy to do. What I did was lean my left shoulder up against this thing, put my arm down up in here to a spot where I can grab onto the wrench. So like right here, got the wrench right there. And then with my right hand, I felt for, this is definitely a blind job, reached up around the exhaust manifold here, down there, and you can kind of feel where that 10 millimeter bolt is, and you can move the head of the of your wrench around, get it on there. It just took a few minutes. It was pretty easy, but and it's loose now. It feels very loose. Let's see if I can get this to come off. I might have to again reach my hand up in there. No, okay. So that came off pretty easily, and the bolt is loose now. So that was, I feel like, the easy part. Getting it off the rest of the way, I feel like, is going to be the difficult part. But let me try some stuff there. I did feel like I had actually a decent amount of room with this guy to get that bolt head off. So let me see if I can back it off enough and then maybe use just a regular non-offset wrench so I have a little bit more wiggle room. A really skinny little guy, and maybe that will get it off the rest of the way. Okay, taking that wrench off, I realized I actually do have plenty of wiggle room. Well, I wouldn't say plenty of wiggle room. I think I got enough room for at least 2 or 3 full rotations of that bolt. I don't know if you can hear that. And the other nice thing is I can reach my right hand up around there. The beautiful thing is I can reach above this exhaust manifold, the little button on the side of the wrench. Let me show you here. To reverse the ratcheting mechanism is actually pretty easily within reach. So let's say that this is the orientation of the wrench. We're up here like this, and let's say we get stuck. We can't back it off of the bolt. You just got to reach up and around that exhaust manifold and press in this way, and now you'll be tightening it back in. So you can get yourself some more room. So if you do get into trouble, you should be able to tighten it back in and then get out of trouble. The difficult thing is going to be if there's not enough tension on the bolt itself to engage this ratcheting mechanism. What you probably have to do is twist it, push, pull, get some tension on this thing somehow artificially with some torque in order to, you know, tighten it back in and get yourself the room. So I'm just going to continue pulling this thing out. It would be freaking amazing if it's knock on steel, but if it's this easy, that would be pretty awesome. Let's see how it goes. All right, well, there she is. That was actually, dare I say, easy. I mean, it's not as easy as just, you know, wrenching a thing off with a little ugga-dugga, but that took maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes with a little messing around. What I ended up doing, again, loosening it, just did about, I ended up doing like 1.5 turns or so. And then I just got my fingers in there. Again, you can reach one hand up over the top. I reached my left hand down below and just kind of reached up there and, you know, got on one side of the bolt. Where did it go now? It's lost. It's in the void. Let's use another bolt here as an example. You know, imagine my thumb is my finger, and just kind of pushed one side with a finger, and then I got around the top with my right hand and pushed this other side down with my finger, and was able to get it out pretty easy. Getting it back in, I have a feeling that may be difficult. I have a feeling we may still run into problems with this oil line here, or the oil dipstick line, but you know, I don't know. So far so good. Knock on steel. So another trick that I'm going to try to employ here, obviously we'll take these other 2 bolts off, get this heat shield off, is to remove the starter solenoid. I've heard some people say that that is a necessity. Other people have been able to get the starter out without removing the solenoid. I'm going to remove it because at the very least, you may be able to get the starter out without taking out the solenoid, but it looks like it's far more difficult. So remove the solenoid first and then pull the starter out, and we'll see if this oil line gets in the way. Man, 200 series Land Cruiser people out there, how do you remove this oil line? Well, I just realized I didn't actually get underneath here and look. I'm doing this weird hybrid of a kind of a mat and a creeper. Oh, am I even oriented? Where am I at? Yeah, it's not looking too promising here how to remove that oil line. So if anybody out there knows, maybe put it down in the comments section. I'm sure there's a pretty simple way to look online, but I don't know that it's necessary. Okay, so I'm going to take those other 2 bolts out and see where we're at. Okay, with the aid of a swivel adapter, got these other 2 bolts out. Now, another thing that I've heard is that getting this heat shield out is a pain in the ass. Just the actual act of removing this thing. Yep, and I think that's going to be an accurate assessment. So, especially with this oil, is that what is causing the problem? Oh, it's that upper portion. Yep, that's going to be a pain in the ass. All right. Okay, that indeed is a big pain in the ass. And I'm getting a strong feeling that I can sit there fighting that thing all day and it's not going to come out without severely deforming it, which I don't want to do because, one, probably not a good idea to deform it. But second, I'd like these screw holes, bolt holes, to line back up again when I go to put it back in. So what I'm going to do instead is try taking the starter out, go back to my kind of original plan. We're just going to leave this here for now and try taking the starter out, loosen the starter. So I got a little bit more wiggle room here. And that was kind of my original plan if I wasn't able to get this top bolt out, is to loosen the starter. This whole mechanism with the shield bolted in could move around, and then maybe it'd be a little bit easier to remove that bolt. That wasn't necessary because removing the bolt was actually pretty easy. So I'm going to try this now. It may prove that I do need to remove this oil line, the dipstick line. It is kind of getting in the way. It's not terrible. It seems like I could probably scoot around it, bend around it a little bit, but it would definitely be easier. I think it would be easier with that thing out of the way. So I might need to end up doing that anyway. But again, I just don't see a way to do that. I'll go have to look at the videos again that are online for how to do this on the Tundra and see if I can glean any insight from there. But, you know, yeah. Okay, I had to do a lot of stuff to get to where I'm at now, but finally got the starter wiggled loose, and we got this heat shield out of there. And there was another heat shield up here that I must have missed somehow. So this smaller heat shield attached to it, I did have to mangle it up kind of bad to get it out of there. It's not terrible. I think the bolt holes will still line up, but as you can see, it's a little bit squished, but that'll be fine. I got it out. It was a pain in the ass. I really had to wrench on this thing and move it around. Having the starter loose though was a necessity. With the starter loose, I was able to wiggle the starter around and then pull that heat shield down a little bit more. Then wiggle the starter, pull the heat shield down a bit more. I ended up pulling it out from the bottom. I had to kind of wrench it this way, pulling down, I think, this side. You can see it's so it was oriented like this, and I had to pull it down this way, wiggle the starter, pull it down, wiggle the starter, pull it down, wiggle the starter. Finally was able to get it back down through. That allowed me to get access to this second heat shield, and that is, I don't know who decided to put this bolt backwards, but there's some sociopath working at Toyota. This bolt here is literally backwards. It's on the other side, so you got to get a little 10 millimeter in there. And then there is another 10 millimeter. Well, you'll find it. It's up there, whatever that corresponds to, somewhere up in this area. It's starting to get dark here. I've taken some breaks. I was also able to get the oil line removed. I was way overthinking that. It was, I just looked on YouTube. There is a bolt right down here. You just disconnect that bolt and then the whole thing just pops up. There's a little O-ring in there, but you can see that goes right there. Not to be confused with this one over here. That's different. You want that one kind of on the side, just down below the air filter intake. And then it just pops up out of that little thing. So we'll make sure that the O-ring is all good before we go back in there, before we pop it back in. And now we're getting close to the electrical stuff, so I've disconnected the positive battery terminal. Definitely want to make sure you do that. And then the next step to get this even more loose and hopefully get this thing out of here is there is a, see right there, there's a little tab on that black plastic. You're gonna pull that tab back, and then I think it's a 12 millimeter nut, I think, on there that's holding on the positive battery terminal connection to the starter. Once that is off, there's just one more connection. So let's see how this is going to work. My concern, as I'm looking at this here, is even taking the solenoid off the starter, I don't know how this is supposed to get out of there. Like, where's the room for this to get out? I mean, I can barely fit my hand up there. Oh, I also unbolted, there's a 12 millimeter holding these, I think these are transmission fluid lines. But it barely moves. It didn't really do a whole lot of good. This barely moves at all. I could possibly take this off. I don't think it's connected to anything. It's just bolted here. Maybe I could get a little bit more movement out of it. But I just don't see how there's going to be room to get this out. Maybe this little pathway here. Maybe. It's just so tight up there. So anyway, we will continue here and see how it goes. I'll get that electrical stuff unhooked and see if we got time to pull this out tonight. One more small thing. This is mostly for my own notes. There is one 10 millimeter bolt that is smaller than the others. You see these others are kind of long. This one's kind of small. That one, for whatever reason, goes up here on this heat shield, which is not the backwards one, but it's the higher one. Okay, got this actuator removed. You can see there's two 10 millimeters on the back here, which would be on this side facing this way, and there are two 12 millimeters over here. We already took one of the 12 millimeters off, so it's just the remaining 12 millimeter for the electrical connection from the actuator into the starter itself. One thing I'll mention about this process, I would, if it's possible, do this while the starter is still bolted in. I think this, one of these 10 millimeters you do have to unbolt the starter for, but the other one that you can see, probably do it while the starter's still bolted in, because right now the starter moves around, so you're trying to get some leverage and torque on your ratchet, and the starter just moves on you, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. I'd say same for the electrical connections. If you can, maybe wait to unbolt the starter from the back, you know, those 12 or 14 millimeters, 12 millimeters, yeah, 14, whatever they were, from the back, those two bolts that hold the starter in place. Maybe wait to do that until you absolutely have to, because it'll just help you with a little bit of leverage on all these other bolts. But otherwise, I'm feeling pretty good about this. I think I may be able to just barely wiggle this thing out the bottom now. Let's give it a shot. Okay, so I spent about an hour on this damn thing last night, and could not get this son of a bitch to come out this way. I moved it in every different direction, and these lines here, which I believe are for the transmission coolant, are blocking egress. So as you can see, I tried to clamp them off here and pull them off of this little device filter reservoir, whatever this thing is. Could not really get the lines off. I probably could. I could force them to get off, but then I got to get them back on, and it's going to be messy. I'm not having really good feelings about this, and I still don't know for sure that they get out of the way enough. And then I got these clamps on here, and if I accidentally touch one of these things and it comes loose, yeah, then you have a problem. You got oil everywhere. So there was another dude who had a really good idea, and this is what I'm gonna do. He was saying you simply remove this 19 millimeter bolt right up here. You can see right through there. That bolt up there at the top of that engine mount. Then you should be able to jack up the engine a little bit and get plenty of room to remove it right here. It should just come out right here. I feel like it'd probably come out on the bottom too, but either way, supposedly that gives you a little bit more room, because you get the exhaust out of the way. It jacks the exhaust manifold up, since of course it is attached to the engine. So all I need is probably about ½ an inch or so. So I'm gonna give that a shot, jack it up, just on the oil pan there. Put a little 2x4 or something in between the jack and the oil pan, and see how that works. So here we go. Okay, using what this dude online calls the grandpa trick. You can see there's a 19mm wrench attached back there, and I got this 20mm kind of locked in to the 19mm that way to hopefully get enough leverage without smacking this thing. I'm going to try to keep it low. In case I do smack this thing, that doesn't look important. That's just brakes. Who needs them? So let's see how this goes. You know what? I'm going to use both hands. Turn off the video. All right, that went relatively smoothly. It didn't pop loose. It didn't break loose like I was expecting, so I don't think you need to worry about running into the brake lines there. It just came loose very smoothly because I think there's some rubber tension on there from the actual motor mount itself. So it was very smooth for a turn or two. Required a little bit of effort. You just got to put some strength into it, pretend like you're a man for a second, and strong arm it to get the rest of the way off, because what happened is I ran into swing space here. Couldn't swing any farther past there using the grandpa trick because my wrench was, you know, running into that space there, and I didn't have the angle to get around to the other side, so I just had to man up and push it really hard until I got around this, and then it was enough that I could just, you know, either throw a ratcheting wrench on there. I just used the regular non-ratcheting and got it a couple turns, and then it's easy to take off with your finger. So let's get a floor jack underneath the oil pan and jack up the engine here, see how this goes. So just for reference, here's this bolt before we jack up the engine. Let's see how much lift we get. Okay, had to do a little experimentation, but at that point right there with the that rail damn near at the top of the bolt for the engine mount, it's just enough to finally get this thing out. And the way I did it, pop it back in here. You can see this is the business end of the thing. Well, I'm not going to put it back in, but that back end will go just down inside there, and you've got just enough room like this to pull it out. I have a feeling I can even get the other one in, possibly with the actuator on it, so I don't need to remove it, because putting the actuator back in place there, you have to get it situated correctly so that it actually does the actuating. So if I don't have to take this thing off and put it back on while it's in there, that would be pretty sweet. Might need to jack up the engine a little bit more, but that worked pretty well. I do have a piece of wood under there. Hopefully that protects the oil pan. I'm going to try to do this relatively quick because I don't want to leave it like that for too long. Don't want it to compress the oil pan gasket or anything. Yep, let's go grab the starter and throw it in there. Really quick here, comparing the new starter and the old one. You can see the new starter is a little bit smaller. That is fine. They changed the design on these things, hopefully made them a bit more reliable, and the new version is smaller. I have confirmed that the part number is correct. It is a OEM Toyota part, just a different part number, but this is the correct one for the Land Cruiser. They actually made several, so you know, you could probably choose from multiple, but that should make this easier to get back in because it's a little bit smaller. So I doubt I will even have to jack the vehicle up anymore. We're gonna go in same way we came out, just like that. Yeah, that is a little bit smaller. I think that's gonna work really well. So let me do this two-handed operation quickly and we'll see how it goes. Boy, that is a thing of beauty. That was super easy to get the new one in there. Having it be a little bit smaller did help. I don't think it's super necessary, but I was able to get it up there with the actuator still attached, as you may be able to see. And so I'm gonna release the pressure on this oil pan. That seems like a pain in the ass when I first saw jacking the engine up. That's not something I really feel super comfortable doing. You know, removing engine mount stuff. Slowly let this down. That wasn't something I was super interested in doing, but that was actually very, very easy. That was not difficult at all. At no point did it feel, you know, shady or like I was hurting anything. I'm sure that the Oil pan is fine. Just slowly letting the pressure off this thing. It's probably going to drop here at some point. I expect the engine to just drop and settle back down into place. Let's see. That should be, yep, all the pressure off it now. So let's go see if it dropped back down onto the bolt. Yep, perfect. I just let it off very slowly so it didn't actually drop. So that was actually super, super easy. Don't be shy. Don't be worried about doing that at all. I'm not a professional mechanic, and messing with anything about engine mounts and jacking up the engine is not something I really would normally feel comfortable doing, but that was super easy. Highly recommend that method. Excellent method. Whoever the dude is who figured that out originally, big props to you, brother. That's a huge, huge help. So now it's just as easy as putting everything back together. How hard could that be, right? We just got this little guy here. Such a cute little thing. That can't be any kind of trouble, right? Yeah. Here we go. Welcome to hell, idiot. Okay, this is quite a delicate procedure, but you can see here, I got the bolt balanced in that little hole, and you can see it's pointing right up where it's home. That's your home right there. But if you try to move it like that, it's just barely balanced there. Nothing holding it in except those screw threads and a little bit of gravity. And the second you start moving that thing, it's going to wiggle its way out, and it is not going to go into the hole, which is why we have this magnet chilling out over here on the exhaust manifold. And I'm going to try moving that magnet over to the bolt, thereby holding it in place, and then hopefully I can move this heat shield up into place over the female hole there and start the thread. So let's see if this actually works. Hopefully moving the magnet close to the bolt doesn't just pull it out right away. I don't think it will, but let's see. Okay, that didn't work too well. The magnet just causes it to flop all over the place, and it wants to really hold on to that exhaust manifold. But as you can see, I think I got the thing up in here by hand. So I'm going to attempt to reach my fingies up there and see if I can get this thread started. Wish me luck. Behold, that is a thing of beauty. Would you behold the majesty of that sight right there? Let's just stop for a moment to take in how beautiful that is. Yep, that was definitely a pain. I think, honestly, I just lucked out getting my fingies up there in just the right spot, getting it in the hole on the heat shield, and then moved up, and it was just dumb luck. One thing I will say, once you actually get up there and start trying to thread it on kind of this way, I had to do backwards because that was the best way for my hands to get up there. So my that my nails were kind of up against the thing. I was actually using this hand, so I just reached up there like this, was able to get up and kind of spin it this way. It's very cold out right now in Seattle. It's winter time. It's like down in the 40s. Having your hands warm, there's all this cold metal here. My hands were pretty cold. Having your hands warm is actually pretty important because you want to be able to feel when you're getting threaded in. And when your hands are freezing cold, you're not going to be able to feel when you're threaded into place. Feel the threads, that's going to be really important. So go in, get your hands warmed up, come back, try it out. When they start getting cold, warm them up again, because you don't want to be up there in just the right position, just about ready. It's in the hole. You just need to get it threaded, just a half a turn on that thread, and your hands are freezing freaking cold and you can't feel the thread. So make sure you're constantly keeping your hands warmed up. And just be patient, and you'll eventually get it. So from here on out, the job should be, knock on steel, relatively easy. Here is one thing at the very end here that might be able to save you a lot of time. As you can see, we've got the heat shield bolted in with 2 bolts. One down here at the bottom and the one back up at the top we already did. This last third bolt I left off for the time being. For those of you who might be thinking about leaving off this third bolt up at the top. But you might not want to because you're worried that it will rattle a little bit. You know, this thing will rattle because it's only got 2 bolts in it. And yeah, there's a little possibility of that. But I don't think it will. And I'm going to test that here pretty soon by starting the vehicle up. And we got all this room right here. If it's going to rattle, this would be the position that you'd be able to hear it in. So obviously I don't have this top bolt on disconnected, but we got this one over here disconnected, which is close enough. We can see what it's like with just 2 bolts connected. I'm guessing it's going to be the same thing if these 2 are connected. Honestly, this part of the heat shield is longer, so that leaves more space for vibration. There's less space up here, so I think honestly having those 2 bolted together and leaving off the top one would have less possibility for vibration. But let's start the vehicle up, put this theory to the test, and see what she sounds like. Okay, from interior, nothing at all. That sounds totally normal. On the outside here, totally normal. And I don't hear anything at all down here. That is not obviously rattling. It's not vibrating. I mean, maybe in certain conditions, you know, no, I don't think so. I don't think that is ever going to vibrate, ever going to rattle. If it does, it would be so minimal that you wouldn't hear it inside or outside. I don't think it's an issue. So I think you can leave that top bolt off. Shouldn't be a problem with that at all. It's going to continue to block heat because it is in place and it's not going to vibrate. So that'll save you a lot of time and hassle because that's a pain in the ass. So there you go. There you have it. That's going to do it. That's going to wrap it up. Oh, no, I spoke too soon. One other thing. If anybody knows what these stupid little clips are that hold this splash guard or whatever in place, I would love to know because I can't find these things. I could probably dig through a Toyota parts place, but if somebody has a parts number for this, maybe put it down in the comments. If I find it, I will put it down in the comments or the description. I have a ton of Toyota clips, but I can't find that one specifically to put this, you know, this back on. And yes, I'm going to do my brakes next. These are not looking too pretty, are they? So we're getting new rotors, new brake pads, and I'm actually going to sand down and paint the calipers red. Okay, that's it. Aloha.